So the plan for tomorrow is to make huevos rancheros, and for that I need refried beans. So I haven't soaked my beans overnight, but I'm going to cook these using a fast soak method. So what we're going to do, we're going to put these on the stove, and we're going to cover them with water. We don't need to cover them by much, just a little bit. There we go, that's plenty. And we're going to bring these up to a boil for about 5 minutes. Okay, so when my beans came up to a boil, they had swelled up a little bit, and they weren't covered with water anymore, so I covered them I added a little more water. So I cooked these for 5 minutes. What we're going to dump them out. I'm going to dump all this water out. Put that back on the stove. I'll put my beans back in here. We're going to cover them with water. Need a little bit more water. I'm going to put in half a tablespoon of salt, 2 cloves of garlic. And I'm sure some of you are screaming, don't salt your beans. Hey, salt your beans, they're good. Alright, our beans have been cooking for almost 2 hours, and they are basically done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in a little more salt. I tasted them, they need some more salt. Now salt is really going to be up to you, how much you put and all that good stuff. Now I want to put some herbs in here. Now this is Epazote. It's a Mexican herb. It's used in beans quite often, but you don't put it in early, you put it in towards the end. If you don't have this, don't worry too much. Just earlier on you can put in a bay leaf or 2 and a little bit of Mexican oregano, and your beans will taste good. I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to let these cool down a little bit. Alright, so my beans have been setting with my Epazote in there for, I don't know, about 15 minutes. Just sitting on the burner. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pour off most of this water. Not all of it. We're going to go ahead, we're going to take our herb out. It's done its thing. Now I'm going to save this water for now because I may need that whenever I start cooking later. Alright, we're going to go ahead. We're going to set this out of the way. Put our beans here. Now what I have is I have a potato masher. Now I went and looked at the market around here, and normally you can find these metal bean smashers, but they didn't have any around here, or I didn't find any yet. But this will work. I'm just going to give it a rough mash. I don't like my refried beans all mashed into mush. I know they do that at a lot of restaurants, but I like to have a little texture in mine. So that's how I'm going to do mine. Alright, my pan's getting hot. It's still got a little ways to go. Now what I'm going to be cooking this in is the real deal lard, manteca. It's good stuff. I'm going to put about 3 tablespoons in here. We need this to melt down, which won't take long. There we go. Those are pretty generous spoons, so that ought to do it right there. I don't want my beans greasy. I just want them flavorful. Alright, I wound up taking a little bit of that out. When it started melting and spreading out, I was like, oh, okay, that's obviously too much. This is probably 3 level measured tablespoons of lard, maybe 2.5. Anyway, I've got a 1/4 cup of diced onion, 2 tablespoons of diced jalapeno. And we're going to soften these up. Alright, you can see the onions are just wanting to start to pick up a little bit of color. So we're basically now ready to start putting our beans in here. Our beans in here, we're gonna turn this heat down to about a little bit. I don't want it on high. We're just gonna start stirring everything in. Keep cooking. Now this is starting to get a little dry, and I'm not quite ready to call it done yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in a little bit of our bean juice. Okay, so these have been cooking for about 15 minutes now. I just added a little bit of water here and there, and then whenever they were just about done to where I was wanting, I took and dumped off most of the water, and the solids that were in the bottom of my little bowl over there, my water bowl, I put those in there because that's gives it nice. It helps keep the color. So now what I got to do is I got to cook this for about 10 more minutes, stirring without adding any more water. It's got plenty of lard, so I don't need to add any more lard. This is a really good time to do your final check for salt. You don't want to put too much salt early because whenever the salt condenses after all this cooking, you could wind up with your beans too salty. These are perfect. I'm very happy with these. And if you wanted to, you could chop up a little more Epazote and put it in here. But I'm good with these just like they are. We're just going to give them about 10 more minutes and they'll be ready. Alright, so these have been cooking for about 10 more minutes and I've been keeping a good eye on them. But if you do get some stuff sticking to the bottom, don't worry about it. Just keep mixing. It's not a problem. And then like when you save these, or if you get some dry stuff around the edge or whatever, don't worry about it. If it's not burnt, just heat it up, mix them in. It's good to go. It'll be fine. Now, for those of you that are saying this is too much work, you always have the standby. You can get them out of the can. They're not as good, but they're ready all the time.